Buon pomeriggio a tutti e benvenuti alla prima riunione della nostra delegazione. I'm speaking in Italian, sorry. Dopo la pausa estiva. L'interpretazione della riunione è come sempre disponibile in inglese, francese, italiano e spagnolo e la nostra riunione, secondo le decisioni che avevamo assunto, è trasmessa in streaming. Per quanto riguarda il progetto di ordine del giorno, se non vi sono osservazioni, io propongo di approvarlo. Quindi se non c'è nessuna osservazione, l'ordine del giorno è approvato. Il verbale della riunione della delegazione del 7 maggio 2025, allegato al fascicolo, sarà considerato invece approvato domani alle ore 10, salvo che il segretariato non riceva richieste di modifica entro tale termine. Colleghi, vorrei ricordarvi, prima di procedere ai successivi punti, che siamo in fase della definizione della lista dei membri della nostra delegazione che faranno parte rispettivamente delle commissioni parlamentari miste con l'Algeria, il Marocco e la Tunisia. Si tratta di un ruolo importante, di grande rilevanza, perché il dialogo sia concreto e approfondito con le nostre controparti, con le quali peraltro già informalmente ha avuto fin dagli scorsi mesi alcuni contatti. Il segretariato ha trasmesso lo scorso 2 settembre un invito a manifestare l'interesse ai gruppi politici. Sono pervenute alcune conferme, ma non sono pervenute le conferme da parte di tutti i gruppi politici, quindi mi permetto di sollecitare a partecipare e a chiedere di partecipare ad una delle commissioni, anche perché a breve iniziano le commissioni parlamentari miste e quindi la richiesta è che manifestiate l'interesse attraverso i gruppi politici di appartenenza. Dobbiamo procedere adesso alla elezione di 2 vicepresidenti. Lo scopo di questo punto all'ordine del giorno è quello di completare la costituzione dell'ufficio di presidenza della delegazione eleggendo il primo ed il secondo vicepresidente in conformità al regolamento e tenendo conto anche degli scambi che sono stati precedentemente stabiliti dai gruppi politici e dalle decisioni che sono state assunte dalla conferenza dei presidenti di delegazione. Dichiaro quindi aperta la parte della riunione dedicata alla finalizzazione della costituzione dell'ufficio di presidenza. Prima di procedere alle elezioni devo fare alcune comunicazioni di ordine procedurale. Innanzitutto dobbiamo verificare il quorum ai sensi dell'articolo 224 paragrafo 2. Il quorum corrisponde ad 1/4 dei membri, nel nostro caso significa almeno 5 membri. Essendo presenti più di 5 membri, il quorum è raggiunto e possiamo procedere validamente alla votazione. In secondo luogo, mi è stato notificato che vi sono alcuni membri supplenti che parteciperanno alla votazione in sostituzione di altri e segnatamente si tratta dei colleghi Christian Ehler per il gruppo del Partito Popolare, che è sostituito dalla collega Rosa Estares Ferragò. Poi per quanto riguarda il gruppo ECR, il collega Inselvini sostituirà il collega Nesci e il collega Nicolas Bay sostituirà il collega Sturzda per questa votazione. In terzo luogo, chiedo a tutti i membri di verificare con sé di avere le tessere di voto, poiché potrebbero essere necessarie durante il percorso elettorale se dovessero esservi più candidati. Ogni candidato che intende presentarsi dovrà essere nominato da un gruppo politico o da 1/20 dei deputati che compongono la delegazione e ovviamente dovrà compilare la dichiarazione di conoscenza dei conflitti di interesse, la dichiarazione degli interessi privati e la dichiarazione relativa al codice di condotta appropriata. I candidati proposti dovranno manifestare il consenso all'elezione. Possiamo quindi procedere all'elezione del primo vicepresidente della delegazione di IMAG e invito a presentare la prima candidatura per la carica di primo vicepresidente. Prego.
Gracias, presidente. En nombre del Grupo Popular presentaríamos la candidatura de Juan Ignacio Zoido Álvarez. Es un honor para mí poderlo presentar. Muchas gracias.
Grazie alla collega. Non sono presenti altre candidature e l'unica candidatura alla carica di... Excuse me. Non sono presenti altre candidature, grazie, ringrazio nuovamente la collega e quindi prendo atto della proposta di candidatura del collega Zoido Alvarez come unico candidato. Il segretariato ha verificato che il candidato è stato indicato da un gruppo politico, che è un membro effettivo della delegazione, che ha debitamente compilato tutte e tre le dichiarazioni relative al codice di condotta adeguato e agli interessi privati e alla consapevolezza dei conflitti di interesse e quindi chiedo al collega Zoido Alvarez se intende accettare la proposta di candidatura.
Acepto la propuesta de candidatura y para mí es un honor poder formar parte de esta delegación. Muchas gracias.
Grazie al collega. Se non vi sono altre proposte di candidatura, io proporrei di eleggere il collega Zoido Alvarez per acclamazione. E lo invito a prendere e lo invito a sedersi al banco della Presidenza. Seconda proposta di candidatura del secondo vicepresidente. Prego, il collega Di Rupo.
Presidente, presento la candidatura per la seconda vicepresidente di Pierre Jouvet, al nome del gruppo SD.
Grazie. Anche in questo caso il segretariato ha verificato che il candidato è stato nominato da un gruppo politico, che è un membro effettivo della delegazione e che ha debitamente compilato tutte le dichiarazioni e quindi chiedo al collega Jouvet se intende accettare la candidatura.
Oui, merci Monsieur le Président. J'accepte avec beaucoup d'honneur cette proposition. Je vous remercie.
Grazie al collega. Anche in questo caso nessun conflitto di interesse è stato dichiarato ed è a conoscenza del collega, non vi sono altre candidature e quindi propongo alla delegazione di votare il collega Jouvet per acclamazione. E lo invito intanto. Anche a nome di tutti mi congratulo con i nuovi vicepresidenti eletti e sono certo che la costituzione dell'ufficio di presidenza della delegazione al completo consentirà al nostro lavoro ancora maggiore dinamismo, soprattutto perché il Maghreb è una regione di importanza strategica per l'Unione Europea e perché il Parlamento intrattiene da molti anni un dialogo attivo e costruttivo con i rispettivi Paesi. All'ordine del giorno abbiamo uno scambio, ed entriamo nel lavoro della delegazione di oggi, di opinione sulla situazione in Algeria, anche alla luce della presenza il prossimo 2 ottobre dei colleghi deputati del Parlamento algerino che saranno a Bruxelles per la prima delle commissioni parlamentari miste di questa legislatura. Sono nostri ospiti la dottoressa Florian Ermacora, che è il capo unità Marocco, Algeria, Tunisia e Libia della direzione MENA, e la dottoressa Alessandra Gatto, che è vice capo divisione Nord Africa del Servizio Europeo Esterno per l'Azione. La conferenza dei presidenti l'11 di giugno ha autorizzato la riunione, come vi dicevo, che si terrà il 2 ottobre e quindi al fine di preparare questo incontro importantissimo per le relazioni che esistono tra l'Europa e l'Algeria, io ascolterei prima i nostri ospiti per poi fare tra di noi alcune riflessioni in ordine all'agenda che vogliamo proporre ai lavori della Commissione parlamentare mista e inizierei dando la parola alla dottoressa Ermacora a nome della Commissione europea. Prego, dottoressa.
Many thanks. Do you hear me?
Sì, l'ascoltiamo, dottore.
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you very well.
That's very good. Many thanks for the invitation, dear chair, members of Parliament. I will talk now on Algeria. Overall, and this relates both to Algeria and Morocco, both important neighbors for us, essential partners for Europe overall. We have shared interests with them. Evidently, there's a sensitive political environment, in particular as regards Algeria. And notably in the current geopolitical situation, we should have every interest in intensifying, deepening our cooperation with, and it's true both for Morocco and Algeria, so our southern Mediterranean partner countries. And that's felt also by Algeria and by Morocco. I've been 3 times this year already in Algeria, having met ministers, officials, and I can tell you they are all very, very interested in further cooperation with us. So from that point of view, your engagement is very important. It is timely, it is very pertinent. Very quickly, Algeria's strategic importance, and I'm talking here about our bilateral cooperation, our economic relation importance here. Algeria, super important energy partner, the EU's 3rd largest natural gas supplier, but also with a huge potential in solar and wind energy, renewable energies. Algeria really has all the possibilities to become in future a key green energy supplier also for Europe. We are talking a lot about nearshoring, looking at supply chains in our immediate neighborhood, and Algeria is in principle a good candidate for this. They have the proximity. I talked about renewable energy, which is cheaper than in Europe. We have a young and increasingly educated population, and so from that point of view, good opportunities for nearshoring and further economic cooperation. I leave the security aspects to my colleague from the External Action Service to talk about this. I focus shortly on the key points of developing our economic relation. Of course, the economic relation cannot be dissociated from the political relation. We have evident diplomatic crisis with France, but again, I guess I leave this to the colleague of my colleague from the External Action Service. In economic terms, we have a lot of expression of goodwill from the Algerian policy in working in economically more closely with the EU. They are asking for EU investments in Algeria. But we have ongoing a trade dispute because there are restrictive measures, infringements of trade. This is not facilitating things at this stage, because under the association agreement, we have also launched trade dispute settlement procedure with Algeria to get to try to settle effectively the difficulties we have with Algeria when it comes to import licensing or outright product bans, which we currently see. So from that point of view, it's also a bit turbulent, the relation. We have not had the Association Council for quite some time. The Algerians claim that the current association agreement is unbalanced, and they are not happy either about our work with Morocco in strengthening our economic relations. So from that point of view, there are a number of downsides. But on the other hand, there are also positive signals of engagement. We see very well-advanced negotiations on justice cooperation. We see progress in the cooperation against terrorist financing, money laundering. There has always been a very good energy cooperation, supplies from Algeria, I mentioned it, and future-looking projects such as a hydrogen pipeline. And I can also highlight from the visits, from my visits to Algeria recently, that there's increasing interest in cooperation on migration. We have a very successful operational cooperation on the return and readmission of migrants who are in Algeria and may be tempted to go to Europe, and to return them back to sub-Saharan countries. So from that point of view, we have an interest to unlock the economic cooperation, get rid of this trade dispute procedure, and we may even want to look at a strategic and comprehensive partnership, exploiting better the potential, and Algeria claimed interest in this. We have a cooperation where we invest per year around 50 million euro, which is relatively modest compared to Tunisia or Morocco, but very well received by Algeria, to strengthen the investment climate, facilitate trade, and so on and so forth. So from that point of view, and I stop here, we have every interest, and want to encourage you in that joint parliamentary committee work to rebuild political trust. There's a high interest of Algeria in these relations, in having more high-level visits and more recognition to some extent through such meetings. And I would really recommend you, when talking to the Algerians, to look, of course, at the difficulties we have, but don't lose out of sight the big potential and the possibilities we see in terms of economic cooperation with this very big and important country. Many thanks. I leave it to this at this stage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ermacora. Do ora la parola alla dottoressa Gatto, prego, per il Servizio Europeo per l'Azione Esterna. Prego, dottoressa.
Good afternoon, good evening, Chair. Thank you for the floor, and good evening to the honorable members of the Parliament. Thank you also for the flexibility in switching a little bit the order. Thank you for accommodating that. So I'm very glad to be here with you this evening, and also glad to hear that indeed there is an upcoming meeting of the Algeria-EU Interparliamentary Committee that will take place.
Dottoressa, le chiedo scusa, ma c'è un rumore di fondo che ci arriva in cuffia. Forse il microfono, non saprei.
Is it better now?
Rimane.
Is it possible that the other speaker has not been muted?
Yes. I think, but now it's better. Now we don't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's really better now.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I will carry on, and I will complement, of course, what has been already said by Mr. Ermacora. So as it has been said, of course, Algeria is an important country for the EU, and just to give a glimpse or a few elements to understand, we're talking about the third economy in Africa, after South Africa and Egypt, population of 45 million, which is also very young and very dynamic. In terms of geopolitical weight, not to lose sight of the fact that Algeria has an important role within the African Union. It is an important actor in the Arab League, and it is currently a very active non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. To add to that, of course, we are well aware of very strong historic, economic and cultural ties, including large diasporas of citizens that live in our member states. All this has translated also in very strong institutional relations between the EU and Algeria, the basis of which is the association agreement, which is in force already for 20, has been in force for 20 years, and the existing partnership priorities adopted already in 2017. As been mentioned by already Mr. Ermacora, the areas of cooperations with Algeria are extremely broad. And they have gained probably a more strategic weight in the current geopolitical context. I'm talking, of course, about energy. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Algeria, in a way, stepped in, and it is now among one of the 5 first providers of energy to Europe. In the current context, this is not something that we can underestimate, I would say. And in addition to that, the potential, of course, for further cooperation on energy, as has been mentioned, are very relevant. In terms of, let's say, positive elements, I would also mention migration. It has been mentioned that there is an assisted voluntary return and reintegration program from Algeria to countries of origin. But I want to highlight that this also represents a switch and a change in the country's approach towards migration and an opening of cooperating with the EU on this file. This is something that we think opens actually ways or possibilities to address other more sensitive issues related more broadly to migration, to readmission, to border management. Positive negotiations on judicial cooperation has been already mentioned. So we're seeing progress in cooperation on Eurojust. And discussions are ongoing also on the PRIMA program, the participation on Algeria to the PRIMA program that, as you know, covers scientific and cultural cooperation. The fact that Algeria has been listed, has been included in the grey list on anti-money laundering, has also turned in a way, in a positive way, because we see a very concrete and pragmatic commitment from Algeria to address all the issues that have been highlighted in the context of the listing. From a more, I would say, geopolitical perspective, so more from the EAS side, we also have noticed a willingness from Algeria to talk with the EU in depth on regional issues. We see an alignment often on analysis and shared assessment, and a certain degree of concern for the presence of foreign armed groups in the Sahel, in particularly from Russia, and the potential destabilizing effect of the insecurity and in the Sahel. So we see a potential also for increased and deeper cooperation and alignment in this area. I don't want to turn, of course, I don't want to be completely, of course, silent also on some of the irritants that are present in our relations. Trade is probably the first and foremost. It has already been mentioned that there has been there are a number of restriction measures on import. This has been addressed by, obviously, our colleagues of the Commission. First, in a dispute settlement procedure that was launched in 2024, and following a number of meetings and encounters in July 2025, the Commission announced the preparation for an arbitration phase. From our point of view, it is important to find, of course, a negotiated solution at any time, and work on untapping indeed the potential for investment, nearshoring that Algeria, being such a close country, could obviously could really unfold. What also remains difficult is our relations with some of our member states. Although this, let's say, generates in a I would say, bilateral context, so obviously it has a direct impact on the EU relations with Algeria, in particular when it translates into trade-related restrictions that, as you all know, are of EU competence, and we've always been clear on that. It's not acceptable to have discriminatory treatment vis-à-vis one of our member states. We've also noticed a restriction on the civic space in Algeria. This is something that we have had occasions to raise with Algerian authorities in the appropriate format and in the appropriate forum at all levels, both in Brussels and Algiers, as much as the situation of political prisoners and high level, I would say, prisoners that this assembly, the parliament, has taken a great deal of attention on. These issues have been raised several times and have had the direct engagement from the HRBP. Now, given this overview, I think that the meeting that you will soon have with the members of the Parliament offer the opportunity to raise a number of issues directly, and I would also concur with Florian on probably trying and explore all the avenues that remain open for cooperation with Algeria and, in a way, inputs for untapping the potential of this relation. And I think I will stop here. I will be glad to take your questions.
Thank you, grazie. Passerei adesso la parola ai colleghi che intendono intervenire per rivolgere alcune domande ai nostri ospiti e anche in preparazione dell'incontro con i nostri colleghi algerini. Se ci sono interventi da parte vostra, prego. I give you the floor. The colleague Galán.
Muchísimas gracias. Nosotros estamos preocupados porque nos parece que es urgente que la Comisión Europea refuerce su apoyo a los campamentos de refugiados saharauis en Tinduf, situados, como bien saben, en Argelia. La reducción de la ayuda alimentaria de los últimos años ha dejado casi al 90% de las personas refugiadas que allí viven en una situación de inseguridad alimentaria severa con graves consecuencias para la salud. Y además, la escasez de agua potable y de recursos básicos agrava las condiciones de vida allí en un lugar que, como ya conocen ustedes y sabrán, es inhóspito de por sí. ¿Cómo puede la Comisión justificar una falta de respuesta humanitaria más robusta ante una emergencia especialmente complicada cuando la población saharaui depende casi por completo de la ayuda internacional para su supervivencia? Y, por otro lado, me gustaría también plantear una cuestión que tiene que ver con las relaciones que mantiene la Unión Europea con Argelia. Saben que es un actor clave para las políticas europeas de control migratorio, de externalización de fronteras, y se colabora con ellos en estrategias de vigilancia y también de represión migratoria con apoyo político y financiero de Europa. El Foro Tunecino por los Derechos Económicos y Sociales acaba de publicar este año un informe donde denuncia la existencia de un contexto muy complejo de violación y de graves violaciones de derechos humanos en el país en términos generales. ¿Qué está haciendo? Mi pregunta es ¿qué está haciendo la Comisión para investigar estos abusos y garantizar que los fondos europeos no acaban financiando ni legitimando violaciones de derechos humanos en este país? Gracias.
Grazie alla collega Galán. Il collega Castillo, prego.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Madame Gatto, Monsieur Hermacora, vous avez évoqué les relations de l'Union européenne avec l'Algérie sans même apporter une réponse ferme à la situation de Boualem Sansal et Christophe Glaise, enfermés arbitrairement par le pouvoir algérien. Regretter les décisions, poursuivre les efforts, appeler les gouvernements à faire ci ou ça, espérer une grâce, pour quel résultat? Des ressortissants algériens menaçant notre propre sécurité sur le sol européen, mais refoulés de leur propre pays. Chers collègues, c'est non loin de cet hémicycle qu'en février 2025, un terroriste islamiste a tué un civil portugais et attaqué au couteau des policiers, blessant plusieurs d'entre eux. L'Algérie avait refusé à plusieurs reprises de le reprendre, rendant donc son expulsion impossible. C'est aussi 6500 détenus graciés le 1er juillet, mais pas Boualem Sansal. Ou encore des restrictions commerciales appliquées par l'Algérie sur nos produits européens. Nous nous faisons humilier, nous nous mettons en danger et nous prévoyons quand même de verser à l'Algérie pour la période 2025-2027 un montant indicatif annuel de 45 millions d'euros. Pourquoi devrions-nous accompagner le développement économique et social de l'Algérie alors qu'eux nous piétinent? Cette semaine, cela fera 300 jours que Boualem Sansal est emprisonné arbitrairement par le gouvernement algérien. L'heure n'est plus aux mots, mais aux actes. La Commission européenne est-elle prête à agir autrement que par des mots? Je vous remercie.
Grazie al collega Castiglio, la parola al collega Inselvini. Prego.
Grazie Presidente e grazie a entrambi gli interlocutori con cui abbiamo la possibilità di parlare e confrontarci oggi. Io avrei due domande. Una sull'immigrazione, visto anche il richiamo fatto dalla seconda relatrice. Chiedo cosa ne pensano dell'esempio italiano della gestione dei flussi migratori e se credono si possa creare una collaborazione sempre maggiore sia con il mio Paese, l'Italia, sia anche con l'Unione Europea su questo fronte, creando anche degli hub per intercettare i flussi illegali e quindi l'immigrazione clandestina. E l'altra domanda è per quanto riguarda la difesa dei cristiani in questi paesi. Noi abbiamo molto a cuore la difesa dei cristiani in generale, a livello globale, in particolare in Europa, ma anche per quanto riguarda i paesi in oggetto. Quindi chiediamo quale sia la situazione in questo momento in questi paesi e in che modo si sta cercando quindi di difendere le comunità e le minoranze cristiane in Algeria e in Marocco. Grazie.
Grazie. Passerei quindi la parola ai nostri ospiti, se non ci sono nessuno. No, prego, la collega Androuet. Excusez-moi.
Monsieur le Président, Madame Gâteau, Monsieur Hermacora, je souhaiterais avoir votre point de vue sur deux situations malheureuses qui frappent la France et concernent toute l'Europe. D'abord la Tunisie. À Marseille, un ressortissant tunisien déjà condamné pour violence a été neutralisé début septembre alors même qu'il menaçait les passants à l'aide d'un couteau. Nos forces de l'ordre l'ont neutralisé dans la stricte légalité. Quelle fut la réponse de Tunis? Des remontrances à destination de la France en précisant que cela était, je cite, un meurtre injustifié. Au lieu d'adresser ses excuses pour la dangerosité de son ressortissant et de reprendre ses délinquants aux criminels. C'est un renversement inacceptable. Monsieur Hermacora, pouvez-vous vous engager à défendre la France face à Tunis et à rappeler que la sécurité des Européens doit primer sur toute susceptibilité diplomatique? Ensuite, l'Algérie. Deux cas récents témoignent de graves problèmes. Boualem Sansal, arrêté le 16 novembre 2024, condamné le 27 mars 2025 à 5 ans de prison ferme, peine confirmée en appel le 1er juillet. Son seul crime, écrire. Christophe Glaise, journaliste français, arrêté en mai 2024, puis condamné le 29 juin 2025 à 7 ans de prison ferme dans un procès ubuesque autour d'une enquête journalistique sur le football algérien. Voilà comment Alger traite nos intellectuels, nos journalistes, tout en bénéficiant d'un dialogue permanent avec l'Union. Et Bruxelles, la vraie question c'est que fait-elle? Silence, complaisance. Ces exemples montrent une évidence, certains voisins souhaitent clairement nous intimider et nous affaiblir. C'est pourquoi l'Union européenne a un devoir, défendre ses États membres, leurs citoyens, leurs écrivains, leurs journalistes et ne pas baisser pavillon face à des régimes qui nous méprisent objectivement.
Grazie alla collega Almurei. Io passerei la parola al dottor Ermacora e poi alla dottoressa Gatto prima di passare al tema del Marocco. Prego, Mr. Ermacora, the floor is yours.
Many thanks. Maybe I talk first about Tindouf and how we support as European Union the Sahrawi refugees in Tindouf in Algeria. I can tell you that we are the biggest donors globally, taking care of the needs of these people. It's our Department for Humanitarian Aid, ECHO, which has been funding dozens of millions of euro to support these refugees on all elementary and basic needs, and this will be rather strengthened than lowered. While globally these kind of aids are rather lowered, the European Union is not lowering it, and we are paying every year quite some million, around 7 to 8 million, to help these people in Tindouf. And again, the European Union is the biggest donor, the biggest supporter of this situation. Overall, one word on migration. Tunisia is, I understand, not the subject of today's discussion, but nonetheless, I want to mention that also due to our migration cooperation with a country like Tunisia, the numbers of irregular migration stemming from a country like Tunisia have significantly gone down over the last years, which is very much due to our cooperation. For Algeria, it's a bit more complicated because Algeria did not want so far broader cooperation on migration, but they opened the door to cooperation on migration through the return programs we engaged in. Again, this is about the returning of sub-Saharan migrants in Algeria back to their home countries, and this is very successful, with many thousands of migrants being supported in going back to their countries. I leave it to this from my side and hand over to our colleague from the External Action Service on the more political issues.
Grazie. Prima di sentire la dottoressa Gatto ci ha raggiunto e voleva intervenire la collega Garcia Ermada. Prego, collega, così possono rispondere anche a lei.
Grazie, Presidente, and thank you to the guests. I just have a clarifying question about what was just said about the returns to Algeria. My question is whether Algeria is not really engaging when it comes to their own citizens who are unlawfully residing in Europe and have to be returned back to Algeria, but is engaging on the returns of sub-Saharan migrants. Have I understood that correctly?
Rivolgiamo la domanda alla dottoressa Gatto o al dottor Ermacora.
Can you hear me and see me now?
Yes. We can hear you and see you.
Okay. So I'll take the questions that were not addressed already. So maybe to start with migration. Of course, there were a lot of questions. I'll try to reply from, well, mainly ES angle. Of course, there is openness from our end to increase the level of cooperation or deepen the level of cooperation with Algeria on migration. However, this is a relatively new development that Algeria decided and wants to cooperate in this sector. As it has been said before, indeed, probably Algeria realized that it is a country of transit, destination, and departure all at the same time. So they are eager to address, indeed, returns from Algeria to their countries of origins. the return rate of irregular migrants in Europe, in member states to Algeria, remains indeed relatively low. And the discussions, and dialogues on reinforcing this cooperation are also ongoing, and we would be ready to improve them. There was a very specific question on the Italian model. Obviously, as you, we provide an overall framework, but third countries also sometimes have preferences in addressing issues at bilateral level, so engaging directly with the member states. And the two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. On the two cases, Boalem Sensal, Christophe Glaise, I didn't mention their two names before, but when I said that the HRVP has personally interceded for the release of some that are currently detained in Algeria, I was referring to the two of them. So the issue is very well known. We know that the Parliament is extremely aware and concerned about this. We receive and reply to a lot of course, parliamentary questions. So our, I think, position is well known and has been made public. It is an item that is very high on our agenda, and it has been raised at all levels, including the highest level. I'm not sure. Oh, there was a question also on religious freedom and Christians. Human rights, including freedom of religion, is part of our dialogue with Algeria. This has been raised specifically at the last political dialogue that we had with Algeria, and we are obviously ready to raise it at the next occasion that we will have. I think this, if I didn't forget anything, I think it covers all the questions that were raised, and if not, just remind me.
Grazie e ringrazio ovviamente tutti i colleghi che sono intervenuti. L'incontro con i colleghi del Parlamento algerino sarà, come emerge anche dal nostro dibattito, molto interessante. A me piace ricordare l'importanza della cooperazione che esiste oggi tra l'Europa e l'Algeria, anche nella prospettiva, lo ha detto chi mi ha preceduto, una parte importante dell'approvvigionamento energetico, soprattutto dopo la chiusura con la Russia, nasce al sud dell'Europa, e in Algeria sta nascendo uno dei più importanti progetti di cooperazione che porterà l'idrogeno direttamente nel cuore dell'Europa attraverso l'H2 Corridor, quindi ovviamente avremo modo di discutere anche con i colleghi. Sarà cura del segretariato ovviamente condividere prima di giorno 2 un progetto di ordine del giorno che riguarderà un approfondito, schietto e ovviamente amichevole dialogo con i deputati del Parlamento algerino che saranno con noi a Bruxelles. L'ultimo punto all'ordine del giorno reca lo scambio sulla situazione in Marocco e sulle relazioni tra l'Unione Europea e il Marocco. Come ho brevemente anticipato, la prima missione, la prima commissione parlamentare mista che noi terremo fuori dal territorio dell'Unione Europea sarà proprio in Marocco. Anche il Marocco è un paese centrale delle relazioni bilaterali con l'Unione Europea e quindi non appena sarà pronto un programma di lavoro sarà mia cura e nostra cura trasmetterlo. L'obiettivo non è soltanto quello di incontrare i parlamentari nella sede del Parlamento del Marocco, ma anche di vedere con i nostri occhi alcuni dei progetti di cooperazione tra l'Unione Europea e il Marocco e le principali attività imprenditoriali comuni che si realizzano sul territorio marocchino. Anche in questo caso abbiamo ospite il dottor Ermacora per la Commissione Europea e la dottoressa Gatto per il Servizio Europeo di Azione Esterna. Darei brevemente la parola ad entrambi partendo dal dottor Ermacora. Gatto? Ah, prego, partiamo prima dalla dottoressa Gatto, chiedo scusa.
Thank you again for giving me the floor. So we're moving now to another key and strategic partner for the EU in North Africa. So over the years, we have built a strategic dynamic partnership with Morocco based on very concrete and joint actions. We work quite closely with Morocco also on EU global challenges that stems from security, trade, migration, mobility, energy, and the environment. Morocco is the only country in the region with which we have concluded a green partnership in 2022. Just to underline the significance of this in terms of joint challenge and the promotion of the Green Deal externally. We have in-depth trade and investment relations. The EU is Morocco's leading trade partner, and the EU is the biggest trade partner among, and it is the EU's biggest trade partner in the southern neighborhood. Whereas the EU is also the biggest foreign investor. In addition to that, and very likely to Algeria, we have also strong historical ties and large diasporas, of course, of Moroccans living in EU countries. In institutional terms, our relations are framed by the association agreement, which entered into force already in 2000. And our cooperation aims to foster the economic integration, mutual security, and also the support for internal reform and modernization path. Picking up on this, when we look at the domestic policy, we see that Morocco has undertaken some key reforms and has undertaken an ambitious modernization path driven by two key initiatives sponsored and put forward by His Majesty the King itself. One is the 23rd World Cup that Morocco organizes together with Spain and Portugal. And the other is the Africa-Europe-Atlantic initiative that foresees to give Sahel countries access to the sea, to the Atlantic. These are seen as drivers of, in particular, economic development, creating and job creations. The country also has internal challenges, in particularly scarcity of waters and droughts, frequent droughts to address, unemployment, and what has been defined also as persistent inequalities, internal inequalities. So these are challenges that the country is addressing. Some key societal reforms are still on the way. For instance, the family law and the code of criminal procedures are still, in a way, pending and under examination. When it comes to our bilateral relations, despite, I would say, the high level of integration and of cooperation, in the last years, there's been a sort of slowing down in bilateral relations, and the key element has been the ongoing cases before the European Court of Justice related to the applicability of a protocol on tariffs on agricultural products from Western Sahara and the agreement on fisheries. The Court of Justice has pronounced its rulings in October of last year, concluding a long, I would say, a judicial saga with the different steps of different tiers of judgments. Since then, and as immediately announced by President of the Commission, von der Leyen, the focus has been on working together with Morocco to find pragmatic solutions to, on the one hand, implement, of course, the rulings of the courts as EU institutions are mandated to do, while identifying solutions that take into account also Moroccan position and specific sensitivities. So the work on this is ongoing. In the past few months, we can say that there is a new dynamic in place. that we would like obviously to build on. Just to mention, we have 2 new ambassadors, both in Brussels and in Rabat, that have only recently started to work. This will give a new impulse to, I think, also day-to-day relations. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Burita, was in Brussels in July, and he also had a bilateral meeting with the HRVP and with the Commissioner Suiza. And there is a high-level mission from Commissioner Suiza that will start tomorrow. This will be for also for Florian to maybe to comment on. So overall, I would say that your next meeting and the upcoming meeting of the Interparliamentary Committee, your mission, will probably take place at the moment of new dynamic and positive dynamic with Morocco that you will have probably all interest in building upon. I will stop here and I will take your questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Mr. Ermakora for European Commission.
Many thanks, and I really directly follow up on what Alessandra from the External Action Service has just said. Indeed, our Commissioner for the Middle East and Northern Africa, Dubravka Šuica, is now going to Morocco this week, these days, to discuss bilateral cooperation questions. I come to this. And also, and that's an interesting, particularly interesting point, to participate in a regional seminar on the Pact for the Mediterranean. You know that President von der Leyen announced that we will come forward with a strategy for a pact for the Mediterranean. And it is interesting that Morocco was the only country in the region organizing themselves a seminar integrating as many countries as possible from the region on the shaping of this pact. So they are very proactive in this regional context. By the way, obviously not just in the MENA region, so Middle East and Northern Africa, but also towards the south, which is a very interesting concept, of course, for us, the cooperation with Morocco in a number of details, and this spreads out to the sub-Saharan Africa, because Morocco is very, very active in their cooperation there. Now, as we think that we are overcoming are able to implement the judgments of the Court of Justice, of the European Court of Justice, which Alessandra referred to, where protocols have been annulled because they covered the Western Sahara, and it was questionable whether there's consent of the Sahrawi people. We believe that we are close to an agreement with Morocco on how to get at least an implicit consent of the Sahrawi people, which is a possibility given by the Court of Justice, if the benefits of any agreement covering the Western Sahara, any agreement between the EU and Morocco, are shared with the Sahrawis wherever basically they are living, whether they are living in Western Sahara or in Tindouf or elsewhere. So we are very close in finding an agreement on implementing these court judgments now, and on that basis we can enter into new agreements or renewal of those agreements. And this positive development, in our view, may lead then also to the preparation of a comprehensive and strategic partnership agreement. This has not yet been formally agreed, but we believe there would be ground for focusing on a number of areas and putting this into an agreement. You have seen similar agreements with Egypt, for instance, or Jordan, to name only two. And very quickly, and in line very much with what Alessandra said, I would say there's 6 key areas of strong cooperation with Morocco. Certainly, first one, the investments and the private sector engagement. There's already a lot of work ongoing, a lot of European investments, and we want to see more of this, also in terms of creation of supply chains. And the Moroccans are even interested in some sort of market integration into the European market with some alignment with the European rules and standards. So that's a very interesting ambition, which we welcome, because it can just be in our interest to extend the European market, notably in the geopolitical situation. That's the first point. The second point is indeed the green transition, the green partnership, which Alessandra mentioned, with in particular energy, where we have a lot of cooperation ongoing. There should be more cooperation, even links of electricity cables to Europe, which should bring cheaper renewable energy electricity to Europe than we can currently produce. Third point is connectivity and transport. There's a lot ongoing, notably in the preparation of the Football World Cup in 2030. Transport infrastructures, digital infrastructures, a lot of opportunities for European companies, and we should also politically frame this. Fourth point, human development and social cohesion. We are helping Morocco to get rid of the disparity between very poor and richer people by lifting somehow the poor people into better situations, have social protection reforms as we know them from Europe. And very importantly, we are working with Morocco on the development of skills of young people for the labor market in Morocco, but also for Europe. Fifth point, very strong engagement on innovation and research, where Morocco is engaged in the Horizon Europe program, in Erasmus program, and we believe this should just be strengthened further, as we have done, for instance, with the Euro-Mediterranean University in Fez, which I just visited before summer. It's really in practice cooperation to the benefit of the people, notably the young people. Sixth and last point, which we have in mind when we reflect on a strategic and comprehensive partnership, is for sure the migration cooperation, where we appreciate really already now Morocco's efforts in preventing irregular departures to the EU and fighting smugglers, and we need more of this also to support the EU Pact on Migration and Asylum. Voilà, I leave it to this, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, grazie. Non so se i colleghi vogliono intervenire sul tema, penso il collega Buxadè che è arrivato adesso, prego.
Sí, muchísimas gracias, presidente. Pues por supuesto, y en relación a la última cuestión, porque ha dicho que hay una colaboración de Marruecos en materia de inmigración, lo cual contradice la realidad de lo que vivimos. Este mismo verano hemos tenido entradas masivas a nadando desde Marruecos en la ciudad de Ceuta. La Guardia Civil detectó a un detenido tras una entrada ilegal, la prueba de que una patrullera de la Marina Real marroquí operó como nave nodriza de narcolanchas, colaborando con una mafia para el traslado de inmigrantes ilegales. Y por último, más allá de estas cuestiones que incluso podrían entenderse anecdóticas, tenemos un problema muy grave y creo que la Comisión entiendo que es consciente, y es que solo el 8% de los marroquíes con órdenes de expulsión confirmadas judicialmente retorna a Marruecos, básicamente porque Marruecos se niega a aceptar ninguno de los retornos. Creo que con el reglamento de retorno ahora mismo encima de la mesa en la Comisión LIBE es absolutamente necesario exigir la colaboración de esos países que por otra parte dice que quieren entrar en nuestro mercado único. Yo no sé en qué términos y cómo está el Reino de Marruecos reaccionando a todas estas realidades. No sé si tiene información.
Grazie. Hanno chiesto di intervenire prima la collega Galan e poi il collega Bayada. Prego.
Gracias, presidente. Como ya es conocido, en Marruecos se vive un contexto de gravísimas violaciones de derechos humanos y resulta inaceptable que la Comisión haya propuesto incluir a Marruecos en la lista europea de países seguros de origen. Hablamos de un país que reprime a periodistas, a defensores de derechos humanos, a personas del colectivo LGTBIQ+, y también a activistas saharauis y a las personas migrantes y refugiadas, especialmente subsaharianas. ¿Cómo justifica la Comisión la etiqueta de país seguro frente a tanta evidencia de represión, de persecución y de ausencia de libertades básicas? Por otro lado, me gustaría también saber, en relación al futuro Pacto del Mediterráneo, que está previsto adoptarse en otoño, qué medidas concretas se prevén en el pacto para mejorar la cooperación con Marruecos y garantizar el cumplimiento y respeto de derechos humanos, protección de las personas migrantes y refugiadas en tránsito o que viven allí, y también el respeto al derecho internacional, que es importante para cualquier pacto que tenga que ver con la Unión Europea. Y, por último, hoy se ha visto en el Coreper la propuesta de la Comisión en cuanto a revisar el acuerdo de comercio de Marruecos. Nos ha sorprendido una propuesta donde se planteaba que los productos del Sáhara Occidental sigan entrando en la Unión Europea con ventajas arancelarias, como si el territorio formara parte de Marruecos. Ustedes saben que existe una sentencia del Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea que obliga a que cualquier acuerdo requiere el consentimiento del pueblo saharaui. ¿Cómo puede la Comisión justificar ese intento de perpetuar la explotación del Sáhara Occidental saltándose la sentencia del Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea? Gracias.
Grazie. Prego al collega Bayada.
Thank you. My question is mostly to Florian with respect to the Euro-Mediterranean University. I'm very interested in your view also after you said that you have visited the project that was completed last year. We are talking about the estimated student number of 7,000 students from the Euro-Mediterranean area. So my question is mostly not directly related to Morocco, but rather how can we see such a project be replicated, or the extent of its impact, its positive impact in the areas you are managing. So we're talking about the Maghreb region and also Libya as a head of unit. Do you see that there is a potential for job security, for labor supply in the region, and also to see a cultural shift in entrepreneurship in the area? So I wanted to have also your idea and your prospects of this project, similar projects, or also the knock-on effect of this project in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Non mi pare che ci siano altri colleghi che vogliono intervenire. Io darei la parola nello stesso ordine, prima alla dottoressa Gatto e poi al dottor Ermacora. Prego, dottoressa.
Yes, can you hear? Yeah, am I connected?
Yes, yes. We can see you and hear you.
Yes. So there were a lot of questions maybe on migration. I can partially probably reply to that, still more on the Commission side. We cooperate with Morocco on migration on all aspects of it. So it's not only border management, it's also improvement of their own internal legislation and all steps of migration management. We are aware, of course, of incidents that continue to take place. However, overall, looking at the data, and this is data that is shared from member states with us, the latest data available is 25th of August, to shows that there's been a decrease of 25% of irregular arrivals on the Atlantic route, which means essentially mainly Morocco. in 2024, a slightly increase on the Western Mediterranean route, plus 23%. However, overall, we can say that the cooperation and in long terms and in overall numbers with Morocco is still, supporting the same goal of that we have of managing irregular arrivals from these two routes. This is not the only way in which cooperate. There is also an interest and an effort in increasing and foster mobility through the Italian partnership with Morocco. So that means that Moroccans will arrive and support specific sectors or be able to work in the companies in the European Union when there is a request that can contribute to areas where companies have difficulties in finding available workers. Obviously, readmission is still readmission of Moroccans that are in irregular position in member states remain one of those areas where improvements are needed. Return rates remain low. At the same time, Morocco has also preference to work on these on a bilateral basis. So there have been, according to what some member states register, improvements in the level of cooperation that they have established. And I think the EU remains, of course, available to foster, encourage, and increase cooperation on this. On human rights, as much as we said it for Algeria, human rights in all its aspects remain one of the topics on which we discuss with Morocco, and we have also, in addition to that, regular contacts with the NGOs that cover these issues, and we certainly make sure to pass messages on this. I think these were the two key areas where I was supposed to intervene, and I'll leave it to Florian, and happy to retake the floor if needed.
Thank you. Mr. Makora.
With pleasure. I want to say first a word on the question of how could Morocco make it to the list of safe countries when it comes to migration. The list is the result of an analysis of the recognition of asylum seekers from Morocco in national courts in Europe as with legitimation being asylum seekers. So is there a ground for giving asylum to people coming from Morocco? And looking at the statistics and the judgments from courts and administration in the member states, this shows that there's a very low recognition from Moroccans as legitimate asylum seekers. And this list of safe countries is based on this administrative and juridical practice in the member states. It's not an invention from European bureaucrats, but it's judges and administrative officials in the member states who are in many cases, the overwhelming cases, not seeing reasons to give asylum to people from Morocco. And on that basis, Morocco is qualified as a safe country in the sense of this list. So it's not a European Commission judgment on whether overall that country is safe or not. It's reflecting the practice of the member state administrative courts and courts in question. That's the first thing. The second thing, the ruling of the European Court of Justice on the Western Sahara, which I tried to explain already in my short presentation. So basically, this is about the question whether the EU could conclude a trade agreement with Morocco covering the Western Sahara. And the Court of Justice, the European Court of Justice, made a condition for this. They said such an agreement could only be valid if there's a consent of the Sahrawis living in Western Sahara, in Tindouf and elsewhere. And of course, one cannot interview every Sahrawi. That's why the Court of Justice said if the benefits from that agreement are shared with these people, then you can assume that there's an implicit consent of those people for such trade agreements, and that's exactly what we are implementing. That we found a way of how we can share benefits of such trade agreements with these people. This could be done through triggering investments in Western Sahara to the benefit of the Sahrawis, be it in water, be it in energy, you name it. This is our support to Tindouf. This is a sharing of benefit also, and then engaging in programs for the other diaspora in Europe of Sahrawis. And under these conditions, it's lawful to go ahead with such trade agreements. It's a bit a complicated issue, but I hope I made myself understandable. But in any case, on that basis, we are proposing now another trade agreement or renewable trade agreement, renewal of the trade agreement in line with the court judgment. This was discussed in Coreper. The third and last point I wanted to mention was coming back to the example of the Euro-Mediterranean University in Fez. Indeed, we want to replicate this kind of cooperation on skills training at large scale in the region. You will soon see that we come forward with a proposal for a pact for the Mediterranean. This skills training will be a key subject here, that we further fund this. How we define the needed skills, how we involve industry and business into this, because the skills should be trained in response to the concrete demands. We have established a very nice program which is called Talent Partnership, where we are bringing all actors together in given countries like Morocco, for instance, or in Tunisia, to identify which skills are needed and how we can cooperate to train the young people to come to these skills. I believe this is one of the most important parts of cooperation with these countries. Thanks.
Grazie ai nostri ospiti. Ovviamente non sfugge a nessuno l'importanza della missione che terremo alla fine del mese di ottobre, anche perché sarà la prima missione dopo la presentazione del patto per il Mediterraneo e sarà anche l'occasione perché il Parlamento possa ritagliarsi un proprio ruolo nella cooperazione con il Mediterraneo. Se ci sono ulteriori interventi nelle varie ed eventuali, altrimenti se nessuno vuole intervenire io ringrazio ancora i relatori, i colleghi, rivolgo ancora una volta l'augurio di buon lavoro ai colleghi vicepresidenti che sono stati eletti dall'Assemblea e ovviamente il 2 di ottobre la presenza a Bruxelles dei deputati del Parlamento algerino per la prima riunione congiunta e poi la missione in Marocco per la quale potranno partecipare 13 parlamentari. Anche quella sarà una missione molto importante, raccoglieremo tutte le proposte per le visite ulteriori rispetto al Parlamento. Siccome il tema della migrazione mi pare di comprendere che sia un tema particolarmente importante, nei giorni in cui saremo in Marocco cercheremo di vedere con i nostri occhi alcune delle realtà, sia dal punto di vista economico sia anche dal punto di vista del contrasto alla migrazione illegale. Grazie a tutti.